The storm arrived without warning, as storms often did on Cathara Prime. One moment, the twin suns cast their amber glow across the crystalline forests. The next, the sky split open with a sound that could shatter worlds. Lena had been gathering water samples near the research outpost when the first crack of thunder rolled across the horizon. She looked up, her weathered hands pausing mid-motion, and watched the clouds gather like bruised fists above the canopy. The air tasted of ozone and something else, something primal that made the hair on her arms stand on end. Then she heard them. The cubs. Their distress calls pierced through the pre-storm silence, high-pitched chirps that spoke of pure, unadulterated terror. Lena dropped her collection kit and ran toward the sound, her boots crunching against the phosphorescent moss that carpeted the forest floor. She found them huddled beneath a fallen log, 7 juvenile Cathari clinging to each other in a trembling mass of fur and fear. Their large, reflective eyes that could see in 17 different light spectrums, were squeezed shut against the assault of nature's fury. These weren't just any cubs. They were the offspring of Ambassador Threll, left in the care of the research team while the adults attended the Galactic Council Summit 3 systems away. Another thunderclap split the sky, and the cubs shrieked in unison. Lena's heart clenched. She had read the xenobiological reports. The Cathari were one of the galaxy's most advanced species. Their ships folded space like origami. Their mathematics solved problems humans couldn't even conceptualize. But they had evolved on a world without weather, where geothermal vents provided steady warmth and artificial domes controlled every variable. Their homeworld had been engineered for millennia, stripped of chaos, purged of unpredictability. They had never known a storm. "Hey," Lena said softly, dropping to her knees in the mud. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here." The smallest cub, Ro, she remembered from the briefing, peeked out from between his siblings. His silver fur was standing on end, his whiskers quivering. When lightning flashed, painting the world in stark white, he let out a sound that was almost a sob. Lena had heard that sound before. Not from an alien species on a distant world, but from her nephew during his first thunderstorm. From the orphaned wolf cub she'd rehabilitated in Montana. From countless frightened creatures who didn't understand that the sky wasn't falling, that the world wasn't ending. Fear, she had learned, was universal. "Come here," she whispered, extending her arms. The cubs hesitated. Humans were strange to them, bipedal oddities who navigated with only 3 color receptors, who couldn't hear half the universe's songs, who insisted on eating solid food instead of the nutritional mists the Cathari preferred. Strange, irrational creatures who came from a world that actively tried to kill them. Thunder roared again, closer now. The storm was directly overhead. Ro moved first. He scrambled out from the huddle and pressed himself against Lena's side, his small body vibrating with fear. The others followed, instinct overriding hesitation. Within seconds, Lena found herself surrounded by 7 terrified cubs, all trying to burrow into her jacket, her lap, any space that offered shelter from the terrible sky. "I've got you," Lena murmured, wrapping her arms around as many as she could reach. "I've got you." The rain began, fat, heavy drops that hammered against the canopy and turned the forest floor into a shallow stream. Lightning danced between the clouds and thunder answered with a voice like collapsing mountains. The cubs whimpered and pressed closer, their claws, sharp enough to cut through hull plating, carefully retracted so as not to hurt her. Lena began to hum. She didn't know if the Cathari could even appreciate human music, but she hummed anyway. An old lullaby her grandmother had sung, something about stars and sailing ships and finding your way home. Slowly, incrementally, she felt the cubs relax against her. Their breathing steadied. Rose, still tucked against her ribcage, stopped shaking quite so violently. "My world," Lena said quietly, "has storms like this all the time, sometimes worse. When I was little, I was scared too." She stroked Rose's head with one hand, feeling the delicate bone structure beneath the fur. "But my mother taught me something. She taught me that storms always end, and while they rage, you don't have to face them alone." The thunder continued, but the cubs no longer flinched at every crack. They had discovered something the Cathari, for all their technological marvels, had never quantified in their databases: the comfort of another living being who refused to let fear win. Hours passed. The storm reached its crescendo and then slowly, gradually began to retreat. The thunder became distant drumming, The lightning faded to occasional flickers on the horizon. The rain softened to a gentle patter, almost musical against the alien leaves. Lena looked down. All 7 cubs had fallen asleep, their bodies warm and heavy against hers. Ro was curled in the crook of her arm, his small chest rising and falling in the peaceful rhythm of dreams. In sleep, they looked so vulnerable, so impossibly young. She thought about their parents at the Galactic Council, making decisions that would shape civilizations. She thought about the massive Cathari vessels that could cross the galaxy in heartbeats, about their cities that floated in manufactured perfection. All that power, all that knowledge, and yet these cubs had needed the most ancient comfort in the universe. Someone to hold them in the dark. When the rescue team arrived an hour later, alerted by Lena's missed check-in, they found a strange tableau. A human woman, soaked to the bone and covered in mud, sitting in the open with 7 alien cubs sleeping peacefully in her embrace. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and sparkling under the emerging stars. "Are they okay?" Dr. Chen asked, his voice hushed. Lena nodded, careful not to wake them. "They will be," she said. "They just needed to learn that storms end, and that you don't face them alone." Rose stirred slightly, burrowing deeper into her arm, and Lena smiled. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Cathari were known for their mathematical genius, their technological supremacy, their calculated perfection. But here, in a muddy forest on a storm-swept world, 7 cubs had learned something their data matrices could never teach them. They had learned what it meant to be held by a human, a creature from a chaotic, violent world who had somehow learned to turn survival into compassion, fear into comfort, storms into stories to tell, and beneath Lena's outstretched arm, they slept soundly.